Welcome to Talent Titans, the podcast where we bring you entrepreneurs and leaders from the global staffing industry. I'm your host, Suki Sodi. Now let's jump right on in and welcome today's Titan. Hi, everyone. Can't believe it's 2025 already, but new year, new beginnings. I'm really optimistic for our industry this year. So let's just dive straight in. Today, we are talking about workforce management and VMS. One of the things I keep getting asked for on the coaching side is, especially as a small, mid-sized business, how do you capture that part of the market? How do you compete? So I decided to bring in none other than an expert, Matthew Cook from Bridge VMS. Hey, Matthew.
Hi, Suki. Good morning. Happy New Year.
And to you. So, for those that don't know who you are, just want to give everybody a 10,000 foot view of who Matthew and who Bridge VMS are.
Sure. So, myself, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Bridge VMS. We are a UK based VMS with offices in Austin and Toronto. And, myself, I've been in the recruiting and staffing industry since 2007. I ran a sales-oriented sales recruiting company, as well as some sales outsourcing through that company. And then I had a digital marketing company that helped staffing companies scale using digital marketing techniques, primarily in the staffing industry. We had some other industries as well. So I've been either in or adjacent to the staffing industry for a long time. And I joined Bridge about 2 years ago. And Bridge started as a vendor management system for a UK based MSP. They were looking for a VMS that was, I guess, more user friendly than some of the VMSs that are on the market, one that was more configurable. And so they liked it so much, they bought the technology. And I guess about 3 years ago, we began commercializing the product because a lot of the MSPs end user clients really enjoyed the user interface and the ease of use and the ease of implementation. So we commercialized the product, and I was brought on board to help scale the organization. We now have customers in Canada, the United States, throughout Europe, as well as Australia.
Amazing. I always love it when technology companies, regardless of the service offering, they have individuals that have had exposure to staffing. I know it's cliche, but there is no other industry like staffing. Okay.
Right.
So when you have tech companies that are trying to disrupt the industry, I think it's really important that they've worked in the industry, or certainly have people that have worked in the industry, because you know the challenges we go through on a day-to-day basis. So look, I'm going to start off with a very basic, some may say that's a dumb question, but guess what? I'm going to ask it. What is workforce management and VMS?
So workforce management is really an all-encompassing term that really just means all the activities and processes that a company uses to manage their workforce. So that could be everything from time and attendance to payroll to other software products, compliance, credentialing, anything to basically make your workforce productive. It's really a measure of productivity. And a vendor management system is it's a software that you use to manage the contingent aspect of that workforce. Same thing, it helps manage job requisitions, invoice, timesheets, credentialing, all from a single platform. It could also manage multiple suppliers, so staffing suppliers into a particular program. It can be used by an end client. It can be used by an MSP. It can be used by a master vendor, and ultimately, it can be used by staffing companies as well.
So I'm thinking of it from a small business, mid-sized
Yep.
business perspective, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, why do I need a VMS, right? How does it change my recruiting game then?
Right. I like to use examples because most people that will be listening to this are probably asking a question. Okay, how can I use this
Yeah.
in my particular business? So,
I'm a small business.
right.
There's 20 of us, for argument's sake. VMSs are for the big players. I have to go and be a sub vendor, tier two vendor, three vendor, whatever it might be.
Right.
That's not the case, right? So if you could just elaborate
Mhm.
on why this is going to change the game for my business.
So I'll give you an example of a company that approached us a little while ago, and they had a staffing company in the U.S. They had a customer that they were not the master vendor. They weren't running an MSP program. There were 8 other vendors that were supplying, and the company actually approached them and said, "Hey, we really like the work that you're doing. We would really like you to kind of take responsibility for running this program, but we want you to come to us with the technology." Because at that point, the company was managing everything on a very manual basis. And so the VMS in this particular case allowed the staffing company to essentially become the master vendor and then work very closely to manage the job requisitions. They were the ones responsible for the tiering of orders as they came through. And not over and above that, I think it really added a lot of value to the relationship that they had with their end customer. Because I think the challenge in staffing always is maintaining margins. And in the absence of the ability to show and offer value, price is always going to be an issue. But if you can come in and say, look, we really are a trusted partner, we've got this piece of technology that's going to help us not only manage the entire process, but we're going to streamline it. We're bringing the technology to you. We're going to handle all the timesheets and invoicing and reporting and analytics. We're going to manage all the credentialing to make sure that everything's up to date so that we're not misclassifying workers, et cetera. And so it changes the nature of the conversation. If you're a staffing company, if you have a customer where you know you're the number, let's say tier one supplier, and you're supplying a lot of the people to that program, offers a lot of value to go in and say, look, here's the way we're doing it now. We have a piece of technology that can help us. And not only that, we'll be able to provide reporting and analytics and feedback in terms of how well it's going. And that's a pretty common discussion that we have on a regular basis with staffing companies all over the world.
So what happens? So I'm a small staffing agency.
Hmm.
Stick with the scenario I gave, 20-person team type of thing. What are the potential risks for me if I don't, quote unquote, embrace VMS? I'm happy running off my
Yeah,
Excel sheets, and no disrespect, because you'll be shocked how many people still are running off an Excel sheet, right? And
right.
they're running a couple of hundred temps, if not more. So let me paint this scenario. So I'm listening to this either now or on the replay or whatever. I'm thinking, yeah, but you know what? I'm already dealing with, and I'm thinking of a Canadian company, Canadian Tire for argument's sake. That might be a bad example, but I've said it now. I've got my 400 temps in there. Why do I need a VMS? This works for me.
Mhm.
What's the danger of me not adopting technology here then?
Well, I think it's similar to almost any technology that you could adopt for any purpose in business is that you're number one, you're looking at inefficiencies, right? We have a customer that was exact scenario you just laid out, hundreds of contract workers. They were using spreadsheets. So think about the manpower that you need to manage all of those spreadsheets, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right off the bat, if you streamline those processes, and no one likes to hear about, not needing people, but the reality is that it centralizes everything, it streamlines everything. You don't need as many people to run it, and there's a feedback loop that you can look in the system. Everything's time stamped, everything is reportable. So you can create all these custom reports and find out how efficient your process really is. And typically, what happens when a customer of ours goes from managing from spreadsheets to using our VMS tool is that they quickly identify either not issues, but opportunities within their own candidate workflow, opportunities within how they're invoicing and billing, their accounts receivable, Everything gets put into the system and can be viewed by anyone at any time. And it gives the opportunity for an organization to really become incredibly efficient.
As you were talking there, I was listening and I said to myself, okay, so I've got my Excel sheets and I've got my 300 temps out. But something you said where I'm like, oh, good point. I don't actually know with my Excel sheet model, I don't actually know the lost opportunity, right? Because I'm doing my 300, I've got my process, but there's no growth in that. So if I've understood you correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, adopting a VMS solution, it's not only going to streamline efficiencies and things like that, but I can't help but think my business will just grow because I've eliminated any bottlenecks that I've got in my business that I've kind of taken for granted, right? It's just like, oh, yeah, but that's just the way it is. It's always been like that.
Right.
Am I right in thinking that
No,
this is
you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, most companies are constrained by the resources that they have, right? So if you can make all of the resources you have, let's say you have 150 people or 10 people, if you can make them even 5% more productive, each one of them, because you've implemented something that will help streamline some of your efforts, you now have time, energy, resources to apply to actually doing the things that will really help grow your business. So I'm a big believer in automating what you can automate so that you can free yourself up to really focus on the things that will help you grow your business.
now, is it fair to say that more and more companies, as in end user clients,
Mhm.
are going to insist on working with only those vendors that have the tools? And, in other words, they're eliminating anybody that doesn't have this level of transparency and tools and technologies. Or are you seeing companies are still like, okay, fine, well, we'll keep working with these people? Because what I'm getting at is, why should I adopt this?
Right.
Right?
And
I
we're
could
seeing
just keep my client.
Right. And we're actually seeing both. We're seeing some end user customers saying, absolutely, we don't want to manage this anymore this way. One of our customers came to us because they lost a piece of business because someone else had come and said, look, we can do this and streamline it with the VMS product.
Ah,
Right. So they suddenly realized that, hey, not only should I be doing this, but I'm potentially going to lose businesses because a lot of end user customers are not only asking for this, they're kind of demanding it because they need to reduce their risk as well. So making sure credentialing, everything's up to date, classification, all of those things become an issue. And especially when you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of potential temps out there, you have a lot of room for slippage. And when March
misclassification's a big one,
Huge,
right?
huge. There was a ruling, I think it was in California somewhere, $1 million fine to a company,
Wow.
right?
And talking of clients asking for this,
Hmm.
the salesperson in me is saying, well, if your clients have not asked you for this, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not wanting it. They've just assumed you can't do it. And they're highly likely talking to somebody that can do it. So I would, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I, as a small business, would be, if I was in that space, I'd be listening to this and saying, oh God, I need to start having these conversations with my clients. Just because
Right.
they haven't asked me doesn't mean they don't want it. They may have just assumed I'm not going to do it or I can't do it. So they're looking for another vendor anyhow. So how do you
Well,
have that conversation then?
well, I think in a lot of cases, the end user customer, if they've been dealing a certain way for an extended period of time, they probably don't even know something like this exists, right? Quite
Yep.
frankly. So if you can be the one to say, hey, we're managing this number of temps for you, and I know you have other suppliers, but we could bring this in to help streamline everything and make your life easier, make our life easier, and make sure that we're in compliance and we can manage the timesheets and everything more effectively. That's an easy conversation to have. Especially, I always put my sales hat on as well because you don't want to just keep having the same conversation.
Yep.
right? This changes, it puts you on the same side of the table as your customer by saying, look, let's find a way together to solve these problems. And they may not know that there's issues, but chances are, I mean, we talk to enough end user customers, MSPs, and staffing companies to know everyone has issues. They just don't know what the solution is. So if you can be the one to come to them with that solution, and we help our clients map out what that roadmap looks like, because to go from spreadsheets to a fully automated VMS seems like a quite a daunting task. And a lot of people, staffing companies or end user customers, also think it's a very expensive option.
Well, that was what I would the thought going through my head as you were saying that. I was like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So let's just deal with that one, right?
Mhm.
This sounds really expensive. And as a small business, I'm sitting here thinking, I can't afford that. My margins are already like there's a huge pressure on margins. I've got this. 2024 wasn't a great year for many
Mhm.
people in the temp space. Is this really as expensive as I think it's going to be? Just listening to everything that the system can do.
Right. Well, that's one of the obstacles that we're trying to overcome. So there's a lot of large VMS players in the market
Yep.
that manage, enormous programs of billions of dollars. We like to say we have enterprise capability, but we're targeting really the small and mid market programs.
Okay.
And so we are not as cost prohibitive as others might be. So in the past, people probably, and rightly so, have said, we can't afford to do that. And what we've tried to do with our pricing is provide access to those, kind of mid-market, small to mid-market programs for staffing companies that they can go in and add this value. And at the end of the day, if you don't have technology, if you're not enabling technology in your systems, talk about margins. When margins are slim and getting slimmer, you need to automate and create processes around as many things as you possibly can, or you're right, you won't be able to make a good profit. You just won't. So if you can enable your team and your customers with this, it will actually save time. And we had a call with a customer beginning in December, just before the break, and it was an MSP with the end customer, and we were on the call, and they were actually talking about the cost savings that they would achieve by implementing our solution. And the cost savings were greater than the cost of our solution. So right there, there's ROI. And anytime you can present to a customer positive ROI almost immediately, that's a very, very easy conversation to have, and certainly a conversation that your customer wants to hear.
Yeah, because I'm saying to myself, your customers are going to come to you asking for a price reduction, right?
Right, right.
We know that conversation's coming. It happens all the time. So if you're ahead of the game, now one of the things with a small mid-size
Hmm.
staffing agencies is that personalized touch, right? So I hear this a lot. There's this huge fear around, well, if I automate, especially VMS, that personalization that is gone, right? So
Hmm.
how do you balance that, getting the efficiencies and ensuring that you keep some of that personalization and those relationships strong?
Right.
How do you do that?
I mean, that's obviously the balancing act, right? I always have been on business development, marketing, operations side. And so my brain has this conflict between automating as much as I can automate, as well as providing that good experience for everyone involved. And the challenge nowadays is, how do we gain the efficiencies so that we are still making, reasonable margins? And we've actually built in like a candidate workflow on the sourcing side, so you can customize what that workflow looks like. So a lot of technology, they give you a box and you have to fit your process within the box. And if you can create that custom process and maintain that integrity using the system and using it just to automate it, you're actually freeing yourself up to provide an even better service to your customer and to your candidates that you're talking to, because it's freed you up. So leveraging technology in the right way can actually lead to a much more positive user experience.
I was just thinking because I was kind of like thinking, okay, client opens up the app, the tool and what have you. Can I have my company logo on it? Does it look like, I'm just thinking personalization again, right?
Yes.
So can this, so when anyone opens up, I want them to see, assuming I was in that space, I want everyone to see my company name, right? Not Bridge VMS. So can I have that as well? Can I have that bit of personalization?
Yes, you can.
Perfect.
That's the kind of the key growth driver for us, is being able to offer this technology that is an enterprise level technology targeted at small and medium sized businesses, powered by Bridge, but it has your logo, your branding
Yeah.
as part of it. And what comes along with that, it's a pretty robust onboarding process, as well as we have step by step guides on every aspect of how to use the tool, both for your internal people as well as for your external stakeholders on the customer side. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible with a pretty low price point, so that you can actually go and offer this to your customers basically starting today.
Yeah, because I think it's important, right? Because automation has taken away a lot of the manual tasks, which is great. But those manual tasks also got you on the phone with the hiring manager, got you on the phone with whoever, right? Stakeholders. So this is going to eliminate a lot of that. So just by having my branding every time, it's creating that awareness with the client. So yeah, so I love the fact that my company logo is going to be on it, and every time it gets, I think it's important, especially for the smaller agencies as well. So, okay, the other thought that was going through my mind as you were talking is coming from my Excel sheets,
Mhm.
right? My imaginary 300 temps that are out. How on earth do I take all of that, get it into it? Just thinking about it just sounds really daunting, right? So that so how do you streamline that integration
Mhm.
so whatever my existing tools are, and we know that a lot of agencies, regardless of size, have this tool for this part of the job, this tool for this, so even as I'm just sitting here thinking, that's like such a daunting task. How do I, again, as a small company, I
Right.
don't have a team of people, I don't have a tech team that I can say, hey guys, can you work with Bridge and get this? No, it's going to be me, my recruiter, my BD person, my frontline people
Right.
almost. So how do you do this without disrupting the current business?
We make it easy for you.
Okay.
So, especially if you're coming from spreadsheets, we have pretty robust data loaders. So we can upload spreadsheets into the system, whether that be job requisitions, timesheets, invoice, whatever it might be. We have a number of data loaders. We have a great customer experience team, an onboarding team. So for the first couple of months, we provide kind of white glove service where we don't expect you to be technology experts. We expect to help guide you in that process and make it as painless as possible. If you're coming from another VMS, which we do quite a bit, it's a pretty straightforward process as well. And usually, what we do is we start off with a small project to make sure that everything transfers over easily and smoothly, and that there aren't any issues. In some cases, we might come to you and say that here's a better way to do this part of the process. We also have integrations. So we have an integration with Bullhorn, for example. So I know a lot of staffing companies and recruiting companies use Bullhorn as front end. We have an integration with Bullhorn, as well as a number of other integrations, because we don't necessarily want to replace everything that you're doing. We want to help you manage the contingent piece well, and we want to help you win new business, and that's what we do quite well. So if a customer comes to us and says, we use tool XYZ, whatever it might be, and we would really like to integrate that, we'll have a conversation about what that looks like. And we'll scope it out and see if it's possible, if it makes sense, and if it's going to be cost effective. So we try to really work with our customers to customize the experience and make it very, very easy. Because I know the one thing that it's a big decision to our customers on average stay with us for around 9 or 10 years. That's kind
Okay.
of industry average. So once you make a decision, it becomes the platform. I mean, think about Bullhorn, for example. Once you make a decision to go with Bullhorn, that's your platform.
Yep.
So we want to make it easy to get on our platform, but also then continue to add functionality. We really listen to our customers and build out our roadmap based on what we're hearing from our customers. And that's created a really good onboarding and customer experience.
So, as a small agency, so I'm listening to you now and I'm like, yeah, this is something I know I need to do.
Mhm.
How do I even, for lack of a better word, get my business ready to even have a conversation? Because what I'm thinking in my mind right now is, my imaginary agency that I own, my 300 temps out, I don't have systems and processes written down, right? I don't have
Right,
documentation. I know my workflow as in, oh yeah, job comes in, that type of thing, but it's not documented. I think
right.
I know all the steps. So as a small agency, small business owner that's looking at this, should I even before I even do anything, just really document my processes as they are now? Does that make the conversation easier?
It certainly does. I mean, my advice, I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I've built and sold 3 companies. My advice to anyone out there is you need to document all of your processes as
Yep.
soon as possible. Obviously, we talk to a lot of people that don't, and this is a great opportunity to document and evaluate what your processes actually are. And a lot of people, a lot of companies operate because this is the way we've always done it. And now, when you're looking to implement this, maybe now this is the catalyst that helps you have that conversation. Is this the best way to do it? Or should we be thinking about this differently? And again, these are questions that we can help answer. So it's not you're not on your own and you buy our software and you're on an island
Stuck.
somewhere.
Yeah.
We have industry experts on staff that will help you work through these challenges and these issues to come up with a solution that makes the most sense. And if we need to help you adjust, some of your processes, we're there to help with those adjustments.
Amazing. Yeah, because as I said earlier on, right, we need to know exactly what we're doing today to be able to understand where our wastage is, bottlenecks are. And even if we don't know what our in my imaginary firm, I don't know what my bottleneck and wastage is because it's always been like that. You'll be able to take a look at it and say, okay, here's some wastage. So okay, so let me move forward in my imaginary sales
Sure.
cycle here. So I've done this. I'm going down the VMS route. Every dollar counts. So what metrics, KPIs should a staffing agency be tracking to evaluate whether their VMS investment is actually delivering the promised ROI?
Right. We have basically an unlimited number of reports that you can generate. You can create custom reports within. So every company has different KPIs that they look at, whether it be, time to fill or whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter. We can create those custom reports that not only that, we have standard reports that we think everyone should be looking at. And within those standard reports, you can have them scheduled to run daily, weekly, monthly, however you want. You can create your own custom reports. And what we found is that once people get into the reporting aspect of the tool, and this goes for any VMS, once you actually start looking at the outputs from using the tool, you actually quite quickly realize where you have areas of opportunity for improvement. And that's where typically after the first couple of months, we do quarterly business reviews where we talk to our customers and help them kind of work through because they're like, we're doing it this way, or we're getting this result, and we're wondering if we did it like this, how can we get a better result? And I'm talking in generalities here because it doesn't really matter what KPI you're looking at. And what we're trying to do is streamline the operation of a particular program so that your margins actually grow, right? We want them to be bigger. And you can track everything very easily, and everyone has visibility into that system. So the problem with managing everything manually is typically it lies in the hands of a few people.
And all
And
it takes is one person to make a mistake,
and we're human
right?
beings.
Yeah.
Everyone can not only make a mistake, but we all have our own kind of biases and perceptions of what is right. And I'm a big believer in the power of the collective group, right, and the brain power of everyone that works for us. So it's great to get input and have different points of view to help you make decisions that will point your business in the right direction.
But give me an example of a KPI, a couple of KPIs that I should measure, because
Mhm,
I want to paint, because I know there are many people watching this either live or afterwards who are just trying to wrap their head around
mhm,
AVMS, right? So we're talking about KPIs and standard reports. What, as a minimum, what should I? And actually, let me back up a second. For those that have implemented a VMS,
mhm.
but like not quite sure what I bought here,
Right.
right? What should I be tracking as a minimum?
So for a company that, let's say, is a master vendor, so I'll use an example for one of our clients. They're a master vendor. There's, let's say 10 other staffing companies that are, and sorry, they sold a master vendor program based on the fact that they had our technology. There's, let's say 10 or 12 other staffing vendors. They can actually look at and report to their end client the efficiency of all the other vendors on the list, right? So, in terms of who submitted the candidates, who actually got hired, the efficiency and effectiveness of those people, how quickly they responded and filled a particular role or submitted a candidate. So, all the traditional KPIs that you would look at just in any staffing company, but you're then able to extrapolate and compare them across the board. And you can look at historical data as well. So, as a master vendor, you may, or an MSPs use it as well. They would come in and say, these two vendors haven't done a very good job this year. Here's the proof of that. And now either more of that business comes to you, or you can at least look at if it's an area that you're not particularly strong in, you could bring in vendors that are. So a lot of it is just if you're bringing it to the customer, it provides you with a lot of information to help make your business run better. And for the end client, all they really care about is the program being managed? Am I getting the people that I need, the right people, the right time, at the right price, right?
And the
At the
right
end of the day,
way.
in the right way, right? And making sure that they all are credentialed properly. Our system gives notifications if credentials are about to expire. So a lot of the manual things that normally would have to be done, our system manages. So you can really, going back to the automation piece versus the customer experience piece, the more that's automated, the more time you have to have real meaningful business discussions with your customers. Because yes, you have to call them with menial things on a regular basis. That's just business. That
Yep.
happens. But the more times you can call them with insights and recommendations, the more valuable you become. The more valuable you are, price is no longer an issue.
Yeah. Well, when you're delivering the same service as everybody else, your only differentiator is your price, right?
Right.
But when you've
And
got,
price is only ever an issue in the absence of value.
yeah,
It doesn't
that's
matter
when,
what you're selling.
yeah. And I guess what I'd add to that is you're looking at what the other vendors are doing, time to fill, sector, sector, sector. But even if you're using this just for your client and you're not managing the whole program, you're able to look at yourself, your own business, right?
Yeah.
Wow, am I really taking 4 days to fill a temporal? Am I really taking 5 days to fill this? Where can I create that efficiency? And I guess going back to my light industrial days, fall offs. Because
Right.
fall offs is you're working again for free. You've killed
Yeah.
the margin you'd gained. And again, that's stuff I think we don't really put a price on.
Because you can't track it and you can't
Yeah,
measure it. Right.
yeah,
And customers that are basically making you work for free, you want to get rid of them as fast as possible.
yeah.
Right. in any business, doesn't matter what you're in, but particularly in this business where margins are pretty narrow.
Well,
And
if we
if
don't
you've
have
got the
that data,
information,
yeah, that's the
right?
point. Yeah.
If you can go to a particular client and say, look, I'm not profitable, I can't help you with this, then it opens up again a different discussion. Either they're going to say, great, I'll find someone that'll do this, or they'll say, okay, what do we need to do in order to fix this? Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you got so many of those stories. I remember, God, I'm showing my age here, right? Way back when I done light industrial recruiting back in England, there was a company called Fairfax Meadows, freezers, meat company, and they'd have, I think it was like a midnight shift, not easy to get to, and you're working in the freezers. The amount of churn and burn you had was crazy. Thinking back on it now, there was no such thing as, we didn't even know any ATSs in those days. God, I'm
mhm,
really aging myself here, aren't I? But I'm just thinking the amount of wasted time, energy that that particular shift, the number of times it had to be refilled. I couldn't even put a price on how much money as a business my employer would have lost at that time because
right.
it just wasn't measured. There was no way of measuring the true lost loss that you're
Yeah.
making on that role.
And it also empowers your people. So the people that are working on those roles to be able to come to you and say, look, here's the data that says, maybe we shouldn't be working on this. Maybe we should be working on something else. It changes the culture of your company as well. So you're not just randomly trying to send a resume in and hope that it gets accepted.
But I think also it's going to my imaginary temp business that I've got, it's going to help retain my internal staff because the biggest frustration is constantly refilling roles or where you don't have the margin in the first place. So, just in terms of I should imagine implementing something like this, just the morale of my internal team, the efficiency. So now they're not 10 o'clock at night trying to find their temp, dealing with issues. I'm not saying you'll 100% eliminate because again you've got human error and
Hmm.
people change their mind, but it's drastically reducing those. So the well-being of my team is going to improve. I know we're running out, coming up to time, but I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Future proofing, like let's get the crystal ball, right? What innovations in workforce management technologies are likely to impact your small, medium sized businesses, and how can they prepare and stay cost effective, right?
Right.
How do they stay competitive and be cost effective?
So I went to a lot of conferences last year, and the magic answer was AI. I guess it would have been end of 2017. I wrote an article for Forbes magazine, and it was called "Why AI Will Eliminate Millions of Sales Jobs." That's what the title was. I didn't choose the title. Forbes chose it because it caught a lot of
Yep.
attention. That was in 2017, and here we are in 2025, and everyone's still talking about AI, but we're 7 years later and we really haven't seen the disruption that AI will bring. I still think that's just the way the world works. You see a technology, you think it's going to change the world, but it takes time. AI will eventually come along and streamline everything from sourcing to invoicing, and it will help fix some of the inefficiencies
Yep.
in the entire process. It will come. That will be the biggest impact on not only staffing, but just the business world in general. It happens slower than you expect. So even though people are saying AI, 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 it takes large data sets. Then you have to model the data, and it takes a while for it to happen. It will happen. It's just not coming as fast as I thought it would. 2017 to 2025, it's a long time to see minimal impact. And certain things have changed. And it's kind of like, with email. Email changed how we do work.
Yep.
AI will change how we manage staffing, but I don't think it's necessarily going to replace people the way that it's talking. But that's what I would be looking for, and we're already exploring how can we incorporate AI into our tool to make it more efficient and help our customers do a better job for their customers.
Yeah, I think any kind of technology is only as good as the person using it,
Right.
right? And I don't believe, certainly in my lifetime, technology is going to be able to replace us as an industry. I think it's going to replace those lazy CV pushers, throw enough crap at the wall, hope something. 100%. But that relationship piece, that if anything, I think clients are going to crave more and more of that human interaction, which was the case. Look at COVID.
I was just going to say, I mean, COVID brought that to light. And because so many things are automated, so many companies have these automated processes on the front end, on the sales and
Yep.
marketing side, that people want to know they're dealing with human beings,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
as AI rises, people will gravitate more and more to make sure that the human element is a big part of their buying decision.
Yeah, 100%. And ultimately, we're social creatures, right? We want that. Question becomes, if technology can replace what you're doing right now, you're dead.
Right.
Right? So that's the truth of the matter. And it's that relationship piece and that's where the money is made, let's be honest.
Right.
It's that
That's where the
relationship piece.
value is, right?
That's where the value is. Now look, I know we could carry on talking. The Canadian Staffing Summit's coming up,
Yes.
and you're going to
Excited
be
about that.
yeah, you're going to be speaking there. So, what I for people listening to this and they want to learn more or they have questions, right? How can we get those questions to you? How do you want us to get those questions to you so you're able to better prepare for the conversation 3rd of April at One King West?
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I any questions that you'd like to know ahead of time that we can tackle, I certainly like to be able to cater to what the audience wants. My end goal is really to help staffing companies grow their business through any means. I have a wide background in business development, sales, and marketing, but specifically leveraging VMS to help you sell more is really my goal.
Yeah, we're 42% sold out on the overall
Amazing.
tickets, but the VIP dinner is nearly 50% sold out, right? And we've got 3 months to go. So I think, and this is a really interesting topic, and that's why we're doing the panel, because the truth of the matter is, if you're not embracing technology, you are suffocating your own business, and the whole day is it's really designed around helping you as a small mid-sized business learn from the big players, because we've got our CEO panel, but we're also going to be talking about how do you stay competitive. So if you haven't got your tickets for the Canadian Staffing Summit, what are you waiting for? You've got to grab your tickets right before they go. So okay, so I will get those questions to you.
Great.
Okay, so I will gather those questions so you're able to better prepare. In the meantime, someone's listening to this and like, I'm not waiting till April. Want to talk about this now. How can they get in touch with you and start the conversation?
They can go to bridgevms.com and book a time there. You can reach me on LinkedIn or email me directly, mc@bridgevms.com. Happy to chat, even if it's just to learn more. No pressure. We're here to try and help businesses grow. If we can help you with that, that'd be great.
Yeah. And you know what? Alternatively, drop me a note. I'll do the intro. So happy to do that. Matt, thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you,
Really
Suki.
appreciate this. You
I
take
had a
care.
lot of fun.
All
Thank you.
right. Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talent Titans, brought to you by Recruitment Professional Forum, where they're building a grassroots community for professionals and leaders in the recruitment industry to collaborate, advocate, and advance the profession. If you liked or were inspired by what you heard, make sure to follow, subscribe, and even leave a review. It lets more talented recruiters like you find the show. Until next time, keep on being a talent titan.